Hello once again, grade 5. Welcome to another SST lesson. Today we're going to discuss lesson 3, Disagreements Grow. Okay, so before we go further, let me give you a quick summary of what we learned from the previous lesson. Britain's new tax laws upset many colonists, and they believed they had a right to be represented in the government that taxed them. Many colonists worked together to protest Britain's taxes. And as anger between the colonists, grade 5, and British officials grew, fights broke out, and some of the worst fighting took place in Boston. Okay, so in this lesson, we will find out some of the events that helped further unite the 13 colonies, but that also brought the colonists closer to war between or with Britain. Okay, so the learning objective of this lesson is to explain why the colonists refused to accept the new laws passed by the Parliament. Now let's discuss the vocabulary of the lesson. Number 1 is monopoly means the complete control of a product or good by one person or group. Okay, look at the illustration here. It shows one supplier, meaning to say when you see monopoly, it has no competition. Then monopolist controls the price of every product or goods, and it's very hard to enter the market. Okay, at number 2, we have the word blockade, means to use warships to prevent other ships from entering or leaving a harbor. Okay, for example, it is a situation in which a country or a place is surrounded by soldiers or ships to stop people or goods from going in or out. Okay, at number 3, we have the word quarter. In math, you learn that it is one of the 4 equal parts, isn't it? But in this lesson, grade 5, quarter means to provide or pay for housing. And number 4 is petition. It is a signed request made to an official, or it is a formal written request typically signed by many people appealing to authority. And number 5, we have the word Minutemen, members of Massachusetts colony militia who could quickly be ready to fight the British. Okay, so they are the people who volunteered to be ready for service at a minute's notice. That's why they are called Minutemen. And number 6, the last one, we have the word revolution, means a sudden, complete change, such as the overthrow of an established government. So the key word in this vocabulary is change. All right, so again, we have the word monopoly, blockade, quarter, petition, Minutemen, and revolution. So please remember all these words as you will interact as we progress in this lesson. The Boston Tea Party. In this part of the lesson, grade 5, we're going to find out that the Sons of Liberty attacked British ships in Boston Harbor to protest the Tea Act, which gave a British company a monopoly on tea. All right, so let's find out what was the Boston Tea Party all about. In 1773, Parliament passed the Tea Act. Remember, when you say Parliament, we are referring to British government. So this act gave Britain's East India Company a monopoly on tea. Again, when you say monopoly, it gives a complete control of a good or service in an area to one person or group. And this includes grade 5, control over pricing and competition. In short, only the East India Company was allowed to sell tea to the colonies. And by the way, let me correct you that when you say Boston Tea Party, it was not, or we are not referring to an actual party, okay? And when you say Tea Party or Boston Tea Party to be exact, it is an act of civil disobedience and not a social party. Okay, what about a boycott of tea? The Tea Act, grade 5, meant that colonists had to buy their tea from the East India Company, so they could either pay the tax on tea or not drink tea at all. So many colonists decided to boycott their tea, and some even made a kind of tea from local sassafras trees. Okay, and then in late 1773, three of the ships carrying thousands of pounds of tea reached Boston's. And then against the wishes of many colonist class, the Massachusetts governor let the ships dock in their area. So let's find out the violence in Boston Harbor. Many people think Samuel Adams planned what happened next. So on the night of December 16, 1773, about 150 members of the Sons of Liberty dressed as members of the Mohawk tribe, if you still remember, had marched down to Boston Harbor. So at the harbor grade 5, hundreds of people were gathered on the docks to watch. When the members of the Sons of Liberty arrived, they boarded the ships and broke open more than 300 chests of tea. Look at the picture here. And then they threw it all overboard. And their angry protest became known as the Boston Tea Party. Now what about the Cursive Acts? The Boston Tea Party Grade 5 angered British leaders. So in March 1774, Parliament passed a new set of laws to punish the Massachusetts colonists. Alright, so these laws were called the Cursive Acts because they coerced or forced the colonists to follow laws they felt were unfair. Okay, let's find out what are those or what were those punishments to the colonists. One law closed the port of Boston until the colonists paid for the destroyed tea. Then to enforce this law, the Parliament ordered the British Navy to blockade Boston Harbor. Then the British warship stopped other ships from entering or leaving the harbor. Then to punish the colonists further, Britain stopped the Massachusetts legislature from meeting. So no more meeting is going on during that time. And then another one, grade 5. Closing the port of Boston was designed to punish the colonists by interfering with trade. Okay, and then it put a colony under the control of the British general named Thomas Gage, that all town meetings had to be approved by him. And then the Britain also ordered the colonists to quarter, okay, the British soldier. Remember, when you say quarter, this is an order that forced colonists to give food and housing to the soldiers. And then many colonists said that the new laws were intolerable or unacceptable. As a result, the Coercive Acts also became known as the Intolerable Acts. So these laws united many colonists against Britain. So not all British grade 5 leaders agreed with these laws. So in April 1774, Edmund Burke said to the Parliament, "You will force them to buy tax goods? Has 7 years struggled yet been able to force them?" However, Parliament class did not listen to Burke's call for cooperation. Okay, so look at this illustration here. The colonists called them the Intolerable Acts and the British called them the Coercive Acts. Alright, before we end up this lesson grade 5, let's wrap up by answering these two questions. Number 1, what caused colonists to take part in the Boston Tea Party? Alright, and the answer, British tea ships were allowed to dock in Boston Harbor. And number 2, what was the effect of the Coercive Acts? The answer, they united many colonists against Britain. Alright, so these are all the first part of the lesson. And the second part class, we're going to discuss about the first Continental Congress, and we're going to talk about as well Lexington and Concord. Alright, so always stay safe and bye for now, grade 5.